Welcome to Godless and Grounded.
The idea that morality belongs to religion is one of the most repeated claims in the world. Many people grow up hearing that humans are moral only because religion taught them to be moral. The message is simple. Without religion, people would lie, steal, cheat, harm others, and destroy society. It is a message that sounds serious and powerful, but when we look closely, it starts falling apart very quickly. The truth is that morality is older than religion, wider than religion, and deeper than religion. Humans were moral beings long before any holy book was written, long before any prophet spoke, and long before anyone built a temple, church, or mosque. Yet religion arrived and claimed something that was never its property. It claimed the ownership of morality. To understand how religion hijacked morality, we must go back to a time when humans lived in small groups, hunting for food, protecting their children, surviving harsh conditions, and struggling through the dangers of the natural world. These early humans had no written books, no religious commandments, no priests, and no rituals. Yet they cared for their children. They shared food. They protected each other from danger. They punished those who harmed others. They created rules for cooperation. These rules were not holy, but they were essential for survival. A tribe that did not cooperate would die. A tribe that allowed violence to spread would break apart. A tribe in which people could not trust each other could not survive long. That means moral behavior existed because it helped humans stay alive. As human societies grew, they developed systems of fairness based on reason. People learned that agreements were important, trust was important, and reputation was important. No one needed a holy command to understand that murder destroys families, theft breaks trust, and lies damage relationships. These lessons come from life itself. They come from experience and social interaction, not from divine instruction. But then religion entered the scene. Religious leaders saw that morality was a powerful tool. If you can control what people consider right and wrong, then you can control their behavior. You can control their guilt. You can control their fear. You can control their obedience. Religion did something very clever. It took natural moral values that humans already practiced and claimed that these values came from God. People who were never violent were told that God commanded them not to be violent. People who already valued honesty were told that God ordered them to be honest. Religion basically took social rules that already existed and rebranded them as divine laws. It was a form of moral takeover. Once religion claimed morality, it made people believe that without religion, humans would become monsters. This created a dangerous myth that morality depends on belief. However, moral psychology studies show that even children who grow up in secular homes show equal or sometimes higher levels of empathy, fairness, and kindness compared to children raised with strong religious instruction. In experiments, secular children have shown more generosity in sharing games than religious children. This does not mean religious children are bad. It simply means morality comes from human nature, not religious belief. Religion also created a strange idea called divine command morality. According to this idea, actions are good simply because God says so. If God commands kindness, then kindness is good. If God commands cruelty, then cruelty becomes good. This takes morality away from human reason and places it inside the unpredictable world of divine instruction. This is why history is full of religious violence. When people believe a God commands something, even harmful actions can be justified. This is exactly how morality gets hijacked. Another way religion hijacks morality is by changing the meaning of what is considered moral. For example, in some religions, questioning authority is seen as immoral, even though questioning authority is an important part of critical thinking. Many religions teach that blind obedience is a virtue, but blind obedience has created some of the darkest chapters in history. When leaders tell people that obedience is a form of holiness, then morality becomes submission, not compassion. Some religions teach that certain natural behaviors are sinful. For example, ancient religious laws often condemned harmless actions as immoral. Many religious rules regulate clothing, food, personal hygiene, and private human behavior. None of this has anything to do with kindness, justice, or empathy. Yet religion labels these harmless actions as moral or immoral in order to control people. This is how morality gets transformed into a list of rituals and rules, rather than genuine concern for human well-being. Another example is how religion treats women. In many ancient cultures, women were considered property. When religion formed in those cultures, it absorbed those same ideas and presented them as divine commandments. That means rules that treated women as less valuable were not based on morality. They were based on cultural bias. But once these biases were written inside holy texts, religion claimed that these rules were moral. This is a clear example of hijacking. Something unjust became labeled as moral only because it was written in Scripture. Religion also divided humans into believers and non-believers. Suddenly, morality became linked to belief, not behavior. A good person who did not believe in the religion was considered immoral, while a believer who did harmful actions could still be considered moral simply because they were obedient to the faith. This creates a dangerous worldview where the label of morality depends on membership, not actual character. You can see this even today in many societies where people assume that an atheist cannot be moral. Look at real-life examples. In countries with higher levels of secularism, crime rates are often lower. Northern European countries, which have very low levels of religious belief, consistently rank among the highest in fairness, safety, education, and quality of life. These societies are not immoral. They simply built their moral systems through law, reason, and empathy, instead of religious instruction. If morality needed religion, then these societies would have collapsed long ago. Meanwhile, many highly religious countries struggle with corruption, violence, and injustice. This does not mean religion creates crime automatically, but it shows that strong belief does not guarantee moral behavior. If morality truly came from religion, then more religious countries would be the most peaceful. But the data shows the opposite. Morality is not created by belief, it is created by human action. Religion also hijacks morality by attaching rewards and punishments to it. People are told that doing good will earn a reward in the afterlife and doing bad will lead to eternal punishment. But a moral act done out of fear of punishment is not truly moral. A moral act done only for reward is also not truly moral. True morality means doing the right thing simply because it is right, not because someone is watching or judging. If a person behaves kindly only because they believe a divine being is recording their actions, then their kindness is not coming from inner goodness. It is coming from fear. This turns morality into a transaction instead of a value. Think about a child who shares toys only because a parent promised candy. That child is not learning kindness. The child is learning how to gain reward. Religion often teaches morality in the same way. Be good or face punishment. Be obedient and gain paradise. This is moral training based on fear, not on genuine empathy. When morality is hijacked like this, people stop asking the most important question. Why is this action right or wrong? Instead, they ask only one question. What does religion say about it? This makes people dependent on outside authority instead of developing their own moral reasoning. This also allows harmful practices to continue for centuries just because they are labeled as sacred. Religion also tries to control morality by taking ownership of forgiveness. In many religious systems, forgiveness comes from God only if specific rituals are performed. But human forgiveness is a psychological process, not a spiritual one. People can apologize, reconcile, rebuild trust, and heal relationships even without any belief in God. Religion took a natural human process and rebranded it as a divine gift. This again is an example of how religion takes human experiences and claims them as religious. Another strange effect of religious morality is the way it separates actions into sacred or sinful instead of useful or harmful. Instead of asking whether something helps society or hurts society, religion asks whether something pleases God or angers God. This opens the door for many actions to be condemned, even though they harm no one. It also allows harmful actions to be accepted if religious doctrine supports them. The result is a distorted moral system in which some of the most important human values become secondary, while religious rules become primary. Religion also created moral guilt that goes far beyond normal human conscience. Human conscience is simple. If you do something harmful, you feel guilt. If you do something kind, you feel satisfaction. Religion added a new layer of guilt that operates even when no harm is done. For example, feeling guilt for normal thoughts, natural desires, or simple mistakes that have no impact on anyone. This kind of guilt is a powerful tool for control. People who feel constant guilt are easier to guide, easier to manipulate, and easier to influence. This is another reason religion hijacked morality. Controlling morality means controlling guilt, and controlling guilt means controlling people. This deeper form of guilt creates a cycle where people try to follow every religious rule out of fear, that even a small mistake will bring divine anger. This pressure removes the natural joy of being a good human and replaces it with anxiety. True morality should bring peace, not fear. True morality should help people grow, not weaken them with shame. When morality becomes tied to invisible punishment, it stops being human. It becomes a tool of control. You can see this phenomenon in many social interactions. A person may claim high moral values because they pray or follow rituals, but at the same time they might mistreat their workers, cheat in business, or spread harmful gossip. Yet society still gives them the title of a moral person because they are religious. Meanwhile, a person who lives a life based on fairness, compassion, and honesty, but does not follow religious rituals, is often considered less moral. This is the clearest sign that religion has hijacked the definition of morality. History gives us many examples of how religious morality can be selective. Empires fought brutal wars in the name of religion, and believed it was moral because the victims were not followers of their faith. In many cultures, slavery was justified through religious texts. In some societies, discrimination against certain groups was presented as divine will. These actions were considered moral only because religion said so. But when we look at them with human conscience, they clearly appear unjust. This shows how moral judgment becomes distorted when it is built on divine authority instead of empathy and reason. Look at how many conflicts arise from ritual-based morality. People insult each other for eating the wrong food, celebrating the wrong festival, breaking a minor ritual rule, or not following a specific prayer routine. None of this has anything to do with justice or compassion. These conflicts happen because religion has made people believe that morality is about pleasing a divine authority rather than improving human well-being. There is another problem with divine-based morality. It freezes morality in time. When a religious text declares something moral or immoral, that rule becomes fixed forever, even if society changes. For example, ancient societies lacked scientific understanding in many areas. Their rules were based on the knowledge available at the time. But once these rules were written into holy texts, religion treated them as eternal truths. This means moral rules from thousands of years ago remain active even when they no longer make sense in the modern world. As a result, religion slows down moral progress. Think about how moral progress happens today. Societies discuss issues, learn from experience, study psychology, observe the effects of certain behaviors, and adjust their moral views. This is how societies moved from supporting slavery to rejecting it. This is how societies expanded rights for women. This is how societies improved justice systems. None of this came from religion. Now consider how children learn morality. Studies in developmental psychology show that even very young children have a sense of fairness, empathy, cooperation, and justice. If a child sees another child crying, they often feel concern even before they are taught any religious ideas. If a child sees unfair treatment, they show reactions. Children learn morality through observation, experience, and emotional development. They understand harm, kindness, and fairness before they understand religion. Religion arrives later and shapes these natural instincts into belief-based instructions. Religion does not create morality. It only modifies it. Another area where religion hijacks morality is by creating fear-based obedience. People are taught that questioning moral rules is itself a moral sin. This blocks critical thinking. When someone cannot question moral rules, they cannot refine or improve them. A moral system that does not allow reasoning becomes rigid. Many harmful practices continued for centuries simply because people feared questioning them. A healthy moral system requires open discussion and challenge. Let us examine the idea of divine punishment. Many religions teach that moral mistakes will be punished eternally. This can create a terrifying image of morality. Instead of learning from mistakes and improving behavior, people may live in fear of small errors. A moral system based on extreme punishment cannot produce emotionally healthy individuals. It produces anxiety, guilt, and shame. Real morality should help people grow, not destroy their mental peace. Another major point is that religion sometimes protects harmful behavior when it is committed by religious authorities. There have been many cases throughout history where religious leaders committed immoral acts, but society hesitated to challenge them because they were considered sacred or chosen by divine authority. This protection is dangerous. Morality should apply to everyone equally. No one should be above question. But when religion gives leaders sacred status, accountability disappears. This again shows how morality becomes distorted when linked to religious authority. Think about how society responds to non-religious acts of kindness. If an atheist donates to charity, helps the poor, or rescues someone from danger, many people feel surprised. They wonder why a person without belief would act morally. This shows how deeply religion has connected morality to faith in the public mind. But kindness does not need belief. Altruism exists in all humans. People act kindly because empathy is part of human nature. A person does not need a promise of paradise to help someone. A person does not need fear of punishment to avoid harming someone. Humans have natural empathy. Religion simply claims credit for it. One of the biggest proofs that morality is independent of religion is that religious people disagree with each other about moral issues. If morality came from a single divine source, then all believers would agree on every moral question. But they do not. Different religions have different moral rules. Even within the same religion, different sects disagree. What one group considers moral, another group considers immoral. If morality were truly divine, this confusion would not exist. The disagreement happens because morality is shaped by culture, experience, knowledge, and values, not by divine command. Another important point is that morality continues to improve, even as religion becomes less powerful. The world has seen large moral improvements in the last few centuries. Human rights expanded, education improved, scientific understanding grew, violence decreased over time. These advances came from human effort and reasoning, not from divine guidance. In fact, many religious authorities resisted these changes at first. The fact that morality improves outside of religion shows that religion is not the engine of moral growth. You can also look at how modern law functions. Laws are based on logic, evidence, psychology, and social needs. Lawmakers do not consult religious texts when building modern justice systems. They rely on human reasoning. This is why secular countries usually have more predictable and fair legal systems. Their laws grow from human values like fairness and equality instead of divine commands that were written in ancient times. Another clear example that morality comes from humans is that even religious people use human reasoning to decide which religious rules to follow strictly and which to ignore. For example, many religious communities ignore harsh punishments written in Scripture because they understand that these actions are harmful and unjust. That decision comes from human empathy and social wisdom, not from the text itself. This means even believers use human morality as the final judge. Religion often claims moral authority, but then adapts its moral rules to match human progress. For example, religious institutions slowly change their views on slavery, child marriage, torture, discrimination, and violence. These changes did not come from new divine revelations. They came from society developing better moral understanding. Religion simply adjusted to avoid becoming irrelevant. This shows that morality leads and religion follows. When we think about all of this, the picture becomes clear. Religion did not invent morality. Religion entered a world where morality already existed and claimed ownership. It took natural human values like empathy, fairness, cooperation, and kindness, and shaped them into a system of obedience, fear, and ritual. It turned morality into a tool for social control. It restricted compassion to certain groups. It froze morality in ancient times. It added guilt where no guilt was needed. It justified harmful actions through divine authority. It replaced human reasoning with sacred command. It changed morality from a shared human value into a religious identity. But the truth remains simple. Morality belongs to humanity. It grows from our ability to feel empathy, to understand harm, to learn from experience, to cooperate, and to build societies that work. Religion may try to claim credit, but the human heart and mind created moral values long before any holy book existed. Morality will continue to grow and evolve through reason, compassion, and shared human experience. If humans understand this, then morality can finally return to its natural place, not as a religious weapon, not as a divine command, but as a human achievement, as something that belongs to everyone, as something that unites rather than divides, as something that evolves with knowledge and understanding. When morality becomes human again, it becomes stronger, clearer, and more meaningful. And that is how we can begin to see through the illusion, understand the history, and recognize how religion hijacked morality, and how humanity can reclaim it.